This is the national debt, the total amount that we, as a country, owe to our creditors, the combined sum of all our annual federal budget deficits lumped together. You might have heard about it.
Our main story tonight concerns the national debt.
The deficits and how we're going to pay for that.
The national debt has hit an all-time high.
Here in the U.S., we have, by far, the biggest national debt in the world, and right now it's the highest it's ever been. Even when you compare it to the massive size of the U.S. economy, the debt-to-GDP ratio, we're still pretty close to record highs. You've probably seen these charts before. They're favorites on cable shows and in newspaper columns. They even make the occasional appearance on the House floor. But what if I told you maybe they don't matter? Let's back up.
Tonight I want to talk about the debate we've been having in Washington over the national debt.
After the Great Recession, the Obama administration spent hundreds of billions of dollars to revive the U.S. economy, which sent the national debt soaring. Economists and politicians were worried about what would happen with the U.S. borrowing and spending so much so fast. Would interest rates spike? Would inflation take off? Would the economy come crumbling down, crushed by the weight of an unprecedented fiscal burden? It did not. And inflation didn't take off, and interest rates on the government's debt did not spike. In fact, and this is key, interest rates fell, and then just kept falling.
Low rates are going to be with us for a lot longer.
Low rates, near zero rates, forever and a day.
Very low interest rates for a very long time.
When the dust settled from the financial crisis, the biggest criticism was that the government hadn't done enough and should have borrowed and spent even more to speed the recovery along. Now enter two famous economists, Larry Summers, the former U.S. Treasury Secretary, and Olivier Blanchard, the former chief economist at the IMF. At a 2017 conference about lessons learned from the Great Recession, these two asked a big question. If you're borrowing money to help your economy grow, and the growth you're getting is higher than the interest you pay, why not just spend more money? Here's how Blanchard put it.
You can still issue debt and in effect not repay it. If you never repay it, the debt to GDP ratio will still eventually converge. It will never explode. It's fairly clear that it can be done.
The idea that federal debt isn't always so bad is not a new one. It's a core belief of modern monetary theory, a school of economic thinking that's been gaining traction over the last few years as the debt has gotten larger. But what Blanchard and Summers said was, rather than focusing so much on this chart, we should be thinking about this one, the interest that the government pays on all that debt as a percent of GDP. Because interest rates have stayed so low, the cost of paying for the U.S. debt has also stayed low, even as the debt itself has taken off. So, if we look at this chart,
you would find the trends much less alarming.
Politically, I realize how much of a bomb this is, but this is what comes out.
The big implication is this, that countries with super low interest rates, like the U.S., can afford to spend a lot more and run up much bigger deficits without facing such negative consequences. That idea has caught on among economists and investors who have started coming around to a whole new way of thinking about government borrowing, and top economic policymakers haven't been far behind. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen gave testimony in March, and she was asked specifically if the growing debt was cause for concern. Her response might sound familiar.
Interest payments on that debt relative to GDP have not gone up at all. And so I think that's a more meaningful metric of the burden of the debt on society.
This change helps explain the Biden administration's approach to the economic recovery. They're taking what economists see as a calculated risk, a bet made in trillions of dollars whose stakes are no less than the future of a nation and of a global financial system built around borrowed money. And for the moment, with interest rates still so low, the bet appears to be paying off.